All right, Black Box Radio. Listen, I'm excited. I'm in Baltimore, guys. You know, when I'm in Baltimore, I'm hot. I'm ready. I'm in my studio in Baltimore. So when I came in though, fully transparent, the roof fell in. So I got a whole bunch to do, but I'm so happy to be here. And this is the 10 of 10. We are at the end of one of the hottest, one of the flyest, one of the boldest series that's out here called the BLAKWomen History Month series in Black Box Radio. We've been on with Black women all March. So all March, we've had at least 2 Black women per week. So Jill P. Carter is our last person in this series. So, I mean, she was really number 8, guys. She really was number 8, and we had to cancel to tonight. So we're going to have a good time tonight. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Queen. I'm the host of Black Box Radio. We are a multimedia platform illustrating Black excellence. We platform Black people. We expose Black genius. And more than anything, we disseminate information to the Black community and to other communities. This is an authentic space for Black faces. We do this 6 to 9 times a month. I want you guys to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to build this channel that is an authentic space for Black people, a grassroots space where we're connecting, where we're authentically talking from us to you. So please help us build it. Like, share, subscribe. I'm gonna say it one more time. Like, share, subscribe, comment too. You can comment, but definitely subscribe to the platform and help us build this thing and share this to your community. So, you know, always at the beginning, I do the business. So got one more thing, and then we're going to get to the interview. We are welcoming on this platform other people. So if you have a blog, you have a podcast, you have a new show, we can develop that for you. We'll give you a producer. We'll make sure you look good, shiny, fly. So please look us up, blackboxradio@gmail.com. Come on, be a part, be a Black Boxer, be a part of this new journey that we're creating of a channel that has authentic grassroots content. All right. So blackboxradio@gmail.com is our website, and you can hit us up at blackboxradio.com also. All right. Black Women History Month is here, and it's about to roll out. But before we roll out, we have a young lady here. She's a people's champ. She's a politician. She says she don't like politicians, but she is a politician. She's a lawyer. She's a Baltimore native. She has done so much in Baltimore and Maryland, and I am so honored to have Jill P. Carter with us tonight. Say hi to the people.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for having me, Queen. This is a long time coming, so I'm looking very much forward to this conversation tonight.
I am too. I'm really happy to talk to you, especially after you retired. So I mean, you've been doing politics for a long time, and you've been a lawyer. You've been in the legal world for a minute, and now you're retiring. How do you feel? That's first. How does Jill P. Carter feel?
So, you know, I feel free-ish. I'm still not really fully free. Of course, none of us is, but I mean that while I did leave the Senate, I'm still wrapping up my legal practice. And
Okay.
I have this new position. I'm on the Board of Contract Appeals. That's a full-time position. So I will be, I think I'll feel even better, you know, once all my legal cases are done, because they're kind of still a sort of a strain, like hanging over my head. And I'm looking forward to just resolving all of that.
Wow.
So
So
yeah.
you're still practicing law. Wow. So you're
And
still
so,
practicing law. When is that going to end? You think by next year, or when is that going to end?
no. Hopefully by the summer. And you know, interestingly, I made a decision a couple of years back, several years back, to only focus on criminal defense and juvenile defense.
Okay.
So I haven't over the last number of years done any other law, no civil, no family,
Okay.
nothing. I'm still able to practice, but I won't be able to still practice in the criminal realm.
Okay. So, and is that something you want to do, or you just can do?
I think that, so first of all, I've always had a passion for criminal law. I've always loved criminal law. Of course, I love young people and want to advocate for them as much as I can in the juvenile and criminal systems. But I feel burnout, and I'm looking forward to a break. And at some point in the future, I might want to do it again. But I absolutely am looking forward to not doing it from day one of being a lawyer all the way 30 years later to this day, I still feel stress and anxiety knowing
Oh,
someone's life is to some extent in my hands. And that's not totally in my hands, but something that I do or don't do could result in them serving time or not serving time, or how
mm.
much time they serve versus, how little. So yeah, it's a strain that I'm looking forward to relieving myself of, at least for a time.
Yeah, that makes sense. As we get older, sometimes we want to do different things, and that makes sense. So I really want to kind of hear, this interview is more about you than just what you do. I know people always want to hear, well, what you're doing, what you're going to do, that type of thing. But I want to hear, like, who is Jill Carter? How did you get here? Like, tell me, because you have a legacy of your father's work and your family's work. And who are you, and how did you get to the point where you became the people's champ? Was this written in stone, or is just something you had to do? Talk to us a little bit about Jill Carter.
So, I think that based on my experience, even whether you plan something or don't plan it, to some
Mhm.
extent, your steps are guided. We all kind of have a mission or a purpose on earth, and we may not know what it is. And so I don't think that I ever knew, and I still don't think I've realized my full purpose at all. But definitely the abrupt death of my father when I
Mhm.
was young had the greatest impact on my life and my
Mhm.
sense of why I am here. What am I here to do? And a lot of it was because my father was not home a lot. And my mother's explanation to me, and my sister, who I think my sister's here. Hey, Judy, if you're here.
Hey, Judy.
Um, my sister was, daddy's out fighting for Black people. Daddy's out fighting for Black liberation. Daddy's out trying to make Black people free. And in my
Yeah.
young mind, I thought, this sounds really, really important. And then one
Mm.
day, abruptly, my father's not here anymore. And I see the outpour of love
For
for
him.
him by so many
Mm.
people in the community. I realized he was beloved and he was purpose driven. I also had a sense, even as a kid, that while I knew my dad loved us, I had I had the sense that my dad had a calling much
Mhm.
greater than just us. And I was fascinated by him and fascinated by that. So he dies abruptly, and I'm like, well, this is like the worst thing that could ever happen. I can't believe it's really happened. So I
How
think
old were
that
you, though? Can you say how old were you?
I was 7.
You were 7. Wow.
And and so I knew that at that point I decided at that point I must have been put on earth, and I must have been his child so that I could carry on the work that he was doing. I felt that even at that point. I didn't
Yeah.
know how. I didn't know how it was going to look or what I was going to do. I just knew I must be here. That was really important stuff. It's
Yeah.
not done, so somebody has to do it. You know what I
Somebody's got
mean?
to do it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought all the older people, all the grown-ups, the people that were like working with him in the movement, the different organizations, the NAACP, CORE, I thought all of those people were going to be still carrying on the fight. But when I went out with the business of growing up, I learned and discovered that they really weren't. Not
Mhm.
to that level, not
Yes.
that independent, sort of radical, courageous, I fear no one, we
Mhm.
have nothing to lose but our chains mentality. So many of those organizations, while they served a purpose and did good work, they weren't about radical revolution. They weren't about, confronting a system of oppression
Yeah.
without any type of reservation. My father was a person, from everything that I know about him, who cared about nothing other than our freedom and using himself up fully for the cause of Black liberation.
Hmm. So continuing his work is something that I thought is something that you would touch you, and so you're here. And so, what did your mom feel when you said that? Okay, I'm going to be a lawyer, or I'm going to. How did your mom feel about you going into this work and becoming the people's champ?
Who knew? Like, my mother didn't have any idea, I don't think, what I was
Really?
ultimately gonna do. No, I think, to be honest with you, everything happens in stages. So I mean, actually, when I said I want to go to law school, she said, "How you gonna pay for that?"
Who's going to pay for that?
Yeah, exactly. That's what she said. I don't know if you can afford that. And
Yes.
I think I said something to her like, "Well, mommy, I really don't think that Macy's or Heck Company credit card bills should be more important than my future. Like, if she was trying to say, because you created some bills, you got some debts you need to pay. And I was like, excuse me, but those people are, those corporations are not more important than, me going to school and being able to make a greater living one day.
I love it. You brought up Heck Company. You put in your age. You said the Heck Company. Wow. Oh my goodness. So law school. So you went to law school and you get into law. Why do you run for for senator? Why do you do that? Why do you go into politics?
So we grew up in a family where my mother always kept us active in campaigns. We had close friends of our family. We were always very politically active. We were always campaigning. My mom was involved in the Democratic clubs in our area, West Baltimore, the 5 and 5 and the Vanguard. And so we were always in close proximity to local politics, and we knew that it was important. But I didn't have any interest in politics at all. In fact, this shocks everybody when I tell them. Some people don't even believe me. But to some extent, I was kind of an introvert, meaning I never really, I would do it if I had to, like speak out in public or something. But I didn't really like being at the forefront of attention. I really didn't like speaking publicly. And I really didn't enjoy going out to social events very much because, again, I'm a child whose father gave his life for the fight of freedom. And then I'm going to and I don't want to denigrate any organization, but then I'm going to like these society social events. And I'm like, what's the purpose of any of this? Where's the revolution? I didn't see the purpose of so many things. And so I thought being in politics, I was going to have to spend a lot of time in the public in rather meaningless endeavors. Right. And I wasn't wrong, because that is a lot of what you have to do.
Oh wow.
But fate would have it, I wound up meeting and connecting with Robert Clay, who was the head of this Minority Contractors Association. I have said before, Robert Clay saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And from almost immediately when I met him, he wanted to groom me and mentor me to represent the minority contractors, both with legal issues and then ultimately legislative advocacy. And so when it was actually his idea, and the contractors generally, because we had these weekly meetings that we had, and at one of the meetings, it was not only suggested that I file for the House of Delegates, but literally folks there helped me fill out the paperwork and drove me to Annapolis on the filing deadline in 2002. And so I filed, and I had no real intention of carrying it through. And I spoke to people that I knew well, especially a woman named Vera Hall, who I grew up calling an aunt, who was in politics. One of my mother's best friends. The very next morning, she called me because, when you file back then, it was in the paper.
Yeah.
So she was like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited that you filed for the House of Delegates. And I was like, you are? And she said, yeah. I said, you really think I should do this? And she said, ask yourself one question. If a miracle happens and you win, is it a job you want to do? And I want to say that again. If a miracle happens and you win, is it a job you want to do? And my answer was, well, I don't really know what the job is, but I know that as a lawyer, I think what bozos are making these statutes, like, sure, I think I can do a better job at some of these statutes than what they're doing. And so the answer was yes. And the reason it was about the miracle is until 2002, when I ran, for some 40 some years prior to that, no one in Baltimore had been elected in local or state politics that wasn't a selection from the political establishment, or endorsed heavily, or a status quo, or on a political ticket, or part of a political club. And I wasn't any of those things. And so it was highly unlikely I was going to win. But I think a combination of things kind of came together. And I not only won, but I won by very high numbers.
Oh wow! So the perfect storm came through, and you mentioned Robert Clay, another untimely death of Mr. Clay. Okay, so you knew some players, in other words, and they put you in space, and you did it. And so when you walked into the House of Delegates, how did that feel? What'd you say? What am I going to do here?
True story. You just made me
True
remember
story.
something.
Oh,
Session
okay.
starts on a Wednesday. And
Mm-hmm.
by that Friday, the first Friday that I was my first year in Annapolis as a House of Delegates member, I sat, there was some kind of a chair or desk outside of my office that was in the hallway. And I sat in that chair. And according to Kurt Anderson and Tiger Davis, I had my head down on my hands, and I was like shaking it like, and they came by and they're like, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I don't know how I'm going to tell all the people that just put me here that I can't do this."
Oh,
And they
wow.
were like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "This is terrible. This is the worst experience I've ever had. I can't stand this. I'm not going to be able to do it." And what I was talking about, I had no idea. So when you go there, the lobbyists and advocates are everywhere, walking the halls, coming to see you in your office, talking about their issues. I had an experience, brand new there, where I was walking down the hall and someone followed me into the restroom to talk to me about their issue. And
Oh,
I identically am sort of an introvert, and I don't like a lot of like chaos and craziness around me. I don't like big crowds. I don't like confusion. I don't like big concerts. I don't like big events in parks. Like, so this idea that everybody was talking to me constantly and following me in the bathroom, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do this. And so Tiger said, "Do me a favor, hang in there, give it one term. And if you still feel this way, I won't argue with you if you want to leave." And he said, "Because I felt the same way when I got here, and
oh, wow.
you're needed. Just give it one term." So I did, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. And how long? How many terms did you do altogether?
I don't remember. So I was in the House of Delegates 2003 through 2016, and
Oh, okay.
then the Senate from 20, was it
18,
18 or 2018 to 2025. Six
2025.
6 years in the Senate, 14 in the House of Delegates, 20
Wow.
altogether.
So you're a career politician. Wow. 20
Well,
years.
I still reject the term politician. I don't think I am a I've never been a great politician, because politicians are good at trading. They're good at quid pro quo. They're good at wheeling and dealing and strategy.
Mhm.
While I learned strategy, it's not my forte. I'm more of a strong advocate or a passionate advocate for something that I want. And if I have to figure out strategy to make it happen, I've learned to do that. But I
Mhm.
don't immediately, like, it's not like innate in me to be like, "Well, I want this over here, so let me figure out who I gotta bribe, or who I gotta convince, that who I gotta sell something to, who I gotta give something to get what I need." That's never been like my nature.
Hmm. So you're not. So what would you call yourself? Not a politician. You're just what?
A
A
person who
servant.
happened to get elected a bunch of times. No, no. People
A
have said the
civil
people's
servant.
champion.
Then.
I'll speak a little bit about this term, people's champion.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why people have said it, and I would say, it's not a misplaced term, because it goes with not being a politician. Um, when I really realized what Annapolis was and what the legislative body really was, I
Okay.
never really became a part of it. I never became a part of the team. I was never embraced by the establishment there. I was never embraced by the Democrat leadership there, ever, from day one to this day. Never
Really?
embraced, tolerated, sometimes supported, sometimes respected, sometimes feared, but never embraced.
Really?
Never like, "Oh, we love you, please be a part of our team, and we want to raise you up and make sure that you're good." That never ever happened in my entire career. So people's champion is because I took on issues that I thought were important to people that were being ignored in the legislative body. And, even prior to some of the things people think about me with criminal justice reform and all of that, some of the things that are important to me, like Felicia's law and Christopher's law, those were two earlier laws some years ago when I was in the House of Delegates that I sponsored.
Mhm.
Felicia Barnes, the black 16-year-old that went missing in my district. was found in the Conowingle Dam sometime later, and it was believed that search efforts were inadequate for her, and also teens were not immediately searched for when they went missing, the way that smaller children were. And so the law, Felicia's Law, was designed to make sure that no matter what the age of a person is, under 18, search efforts begin immediately, and also that all kinds of resources are poured into the search efforts, no matter what age the kid is or what the police believe, because police often believe, oh, she's probably with her boyfriend or whatever. So Felicia's Law, and then maybe a year or two later, Christopher Brown's Law. Christopher Brown was strangled by an off-duty police officer, Officer Laborde. This happened while the country was not yet all about police reform and all about Black Lives Matter yet. I knew because after Trayvon Martin, the Malcolm X grassroots organization did a study that every 28 hours in America, a Black man, woman, or child is killed at the hands of law enforcement. So I was like, wow.
Every 28
and then I started looking at Maryland. And anyway, so Christopher's Law was a law that kind of a precursor to some of the later police reforms that everybody embraced. And that law simply required greater diversity training, greater use of force training, and life-saving skills for law enforcement officers in Maryland.
Wow.
And that was like 2012.
2012. So this is before everybody started, because police reform is blown now. And so, okay, 2012. Man. So 20 years, you said something. You said you were in the legislature for 20 years and you were never embraced. How does that feel, giving that much time to something and your people around you to never embrace you? As a Black woman, I think we feel that a lot in a lot of spaces. So yeah, how does that feel?
I mean, it definitely wasn't easy. But I know my history, and I know that anybody historically that has been a voice of change or pushing for change in a situation where there's an establishment is never going to be met with any kind of real, love or embracing. I think that if there was any part of it that was a little heartbreaking initially, and I would say it was a little heartbreaking initially, because I was raised to be a Democrat. I was raised to believe the Democratic Party was for us. And I could not really believe that the leadership of this party that I was raised to believe in was so hostile toward any time of real Black power or progress. I could not really believe it. And I was well aware that we'd always been the most loyal constituency to the Democratic Party.
Yes.
That they depend on us all the time for every election. They cannot win without us. Absolutely. But when it comes to our lives and our quality of life and actually giving us real equality, they aren't there. They talk progress. They talk, the embracing of all people, including Black people, but then they seek only to contain us and to diminish you. If you, I said this recently. There's a film that Sean Yos and others collectively did, and I'm a part of it. I'm featured in part of it. And they feature a segment where I'm walking in Annapolis and I say, why is everybody that fights for Black people called radical? Why is it radical to fight for Black people? And that's what I experienced for the whole entire 20 years of my political career.
Wow. Huh. So are you, so do you feel freer that now that you're, okay, you retired, you're moving forward, you're doing different things. So is this conversation something you can have without having, you can say anything? Because you're talking about the Democratic Party that you're a part of. Do you feel freer?
I've always talked about them, even when I was there, though.
I know.
Because you know what? I mean, I'm not saying it was always smart, but at a certain point, I was clear it wasn't going to change. I was clear that even though 95% of the time I vote with them, the 5% of the time that I ask them to do something better for us, they don't, they are still very angry about that. They still don't put me, don't include me as one of a team for that. So I knew at a certain point, there's nothing I can do here that's ever going to make these people feel comfortable or think that I could ever be, to some extent, like, an asset to them. I'm never going to be elevated here. I was clear about that. And, that's not everybody's role. And again, it's about knowing your history, because before me, there was Lena K. Lee, the first Black woman lawyer in the Maryland General Assembly, who said, they're never going to pass my bills. My power here is to help to fight and kill the bad bills, right? And I got that. Yep. Understand, Lena K. Lee. And here I am decades later, and I got the same experience, for a while.
Man. So when you say this and you are actually in this, you're a legislator, you're doing it, what do we do as constituents? How do we navigate a party that is particularly performing? I think it's very performative in a lot of ways, that it could do this for you. And if you stand with us, we'll make this better, but it never happens. We see democratic cities. We see the state of the Black community. So what do we do? I think we need other options than Democrat and Republican, first of all. I think it should be more than a two-party system. But what do we do in a party that we vote mostly for our families and our community? How do we go forward as a community?
So the truth is, I understand that extremely well. I struggled for many years with being a Democrat because I was like, how can I reconcile in my own mind my desire to be in this earth, on this earth, in this existence as an authentic person? How can I reconcile that I am a member of the Democratic Party when I've experienced personally their absolute hatred toward me and my people in many ways? How can I justify that? And it's very simple. There was no other choice. There was simply no other choice. And yes, I entertained, other parties, third parties, Green Party, Black Liberation Party, all of that, but they simply have never had the power, the organization, or the ability to make themselves relevant in this state, or really in most places in the country. And if you want to impact policy, you got to play. You got to be in the game. And the only way to be in the game is to be a Democrat or Republican, and that's the way it is right now. I don't think it's going to be that forever. It hasn't always been the case.
And that, true. But because I think this time, I said that I was going to be revolutionary, and I'm going to vote outside of the two-party system, just because I want to see them at least get on the ballot, and then once get enough behind, maybe other people start looking at it. So I just don't know. We have to play the game, but the game is still not being played for us. So what are we doing?
So this whole thing where third parties and Green parties, and I've carried legislation to allow ballot access to third parties and Green parties before, because I believe in that. But it's never going to happen because you're asking Democrats to vote for your power. It's just never going to happen under the current structure. So I don't want to be pessimistic, but there are certain things that I too had idealism about when I was younger, and I just know it's just never going to happen.
Never going to happen.
People don't give up power. They don't concede power. Democrats are not going to vote for legislation to pass a law that's going to give other people access to what they got. Not going to happen.
You only concede power when you have to. You don't just be nice. So I get what you're saying. So you're saying this is where we are. Republican, Democrat, find your way in these. And we see the state of the country now.
I do think it's possible to make change within the party. The problem that we have, frankly, is the factionalization, the fragmentation. If all of the radical Black people who say, I'm just not going to participate, did what the Orthodox Jews in my district did, and changed from Republican to Democrat so they could get a councilman, and now they have a senator. If we did that, we would win, right? But we too busy standing on principle. The principle ought to be winning. Right? Not about, I'm not participating. What did you accomplish by that? So that's how I feel now. And let me tell you, some of my best friends have been third parties for, and I'm not just saying that, like, my best friends, and I pled with them, please just register as Democrat for the primary election. All I'm asking you to do so you can participate. And they were like, I could never ever register as a Democrat, right? And that's on them. That's how they felt. But it wasn't helping us win.
Yeah. So you're saying, what did they? I want to hear what they did. You said they flipped the district to Republican.
No. I'm saying that there were a lot of Republicans, registered Republicans, because that's their political ideology. But when they realize they're in Baltimore City and you can't get a Republican elected, they switched to Democrats so they could vote as block of Democrats to get their people in.
And it worked. You
Yeah.
said it worked. So that made me. So you're saying there's ways, there's inroads, but it has to be within the two-party system. In
It
other
takes
words,
strategy and it
yeah,
takes, a buy-in, so to speak. You got to believe that there's a reason to do it. It's worth it. And I think the problem we have is that, people that are anti-establishment outside the system
yeah,
they think the system is so rigged
they
that
do.
even if they like me or someone personally, it's still not worth it to buy
Yep.
into a system that they believe is rigged against us. The system is rigged against us, but guess what? It's made up of people, and the people are the numbers. So the more numbers we have, the more influence we have.
Well, you know what, Senator, I think a lot of times we don't understand civics and we don't understand really how it works. I think that's one of the things. We vote, but we really don't know how to leverage the vote or how to kind of strategize within voting as a community. I don't think we are very knowledgeable. I've learned more, but I think, like you just said, I didn't think that's something that could be done. I think you just said, forget it. Because a lot of times we say that it's rigged, but we're traumatized. America has traumatized Black people. Let's be honest. And so when everything's rigged, and so we don't trust nothing.
We're
So what do we
traumatized,
do?
but we're also very politically uneducated and undereducated.
Yeah.
And it's not just a matter of lack of civics in schools. Our institutions have failed to really educate us politically.
Yeah.
Our churches, our organizations, our social organizations, our civic organizations, even brilliant people that I know right now that are leading major organizations where they have influence over masses of people make comments like, I don't get into politics. Well, what
Ooh.
if you did, though? But what if you did and you could influence all of those people to vote for
Ooh.
someone? And I think it's a little bit of what you said, where you just don't believe in the system.
Yeah.
I'm not encouraging anyone to believe in the system. The system is not for you, but the
Ooh.
system is controlled by people. And
Mm.
the more numbers you have, the more you can influence the system. And I'll give you an example of it. Where the Democratic Party did something in recent years, in 2021, after George Floyd, Maryland Democratic Party, Maryland legislature led by the Democrats, after a long time of resistance and really rejecting every single effort at any type of police reform for decades, finally passed significant police reform. Why? Why? Because Democrats, white Democrats,
Mhm.
in the state of Maryland saw George Floyd and were polled, and they said, we want police to stop killing Black people with impunity. And so the narrative changed, and white Democrats became comfortable with the idea of pushing police reform.
Wow.
But what if it wasn't just contingent on white Democrats? What if we had stronger numbers of Black Democrats that have been pushing for that? Because every year we'd have a few hundred people coming down or testifying or sending in testimony about police reform, and they'd be mainly Black, not all Black, some white. But we never were able to build a movement, mass movement of voting Democrats for police reform until they saw George Floyd.
But why does it have to? That's the problem, though. Why do we have to see something so gory for us to say, okay, enough?
Well,
The
we don't.
numbers,
But the
the
thing is,
numbers are
Black
there.
people weren't Black
Black people
Black
know.
Democrats weren't into it either. It was always like those people. So that mama over there, her child got killed, but my
Yeah,
child didn't.
yeah.
They must have been doing something wrong. We
Mhm.
always have that mentality. Well, it ain't gonna happen to me. I'm over here in Forest Park. I'm over here in Ashburton. I'm over here in Hunting Ridge.
Yep.
That's over there in Emerson Village. That's where that happened. No,
You
I'm
better
just
know
saying,
it.
like, we have a very fragmented and wrong mentality about that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
the point is, it shouldn't take that, but it does. And when it comes for these issues, and I'm just going to tell you, I've grappled with this question for a long time. It it still bothers me immensely that, first of all, we're not monolithic. Black people are not monolithic.
True.
Voters are not monolithic. And there are very many Black voters and Black people that are doing fairly well. And they don't have the same issues as as people that live in the most impoverished, most deprived communities.
Okay.
They don't have the same daily over policing that influences outcomes for their kids in their neighborhood as others. And when you don't have it, you're not as concerned about it. And that's unfortunately the way people think.
Really? So you're saying, so even Black people who, I don't care how, at some point you're going to feel your Blackness in this country. I mean, I know that definitely we are at different levels, and there's some who have more and some who have left, but you're a Black person. So you're saying if your reality is different, you cannot identify with another Black person that is being killed in the street. Is that what we're doing now?
True. And also that, a lot of our influencers and our media plays a lot into our thinking as well. And I'll give you a current example
Okay.
of a situation where not all, but quite a number of Black people right now in Baltimore are completely misled about something super important.
Really?
Because for 2 years or more, 3 years maybe, 5, and other news media has been pushing a false narrative that juveniles are violent, predatory criminals that are out of control, where there's no accountability and they need to be locked up. When the actual truth is, 85% of violent crime in Baltimore is driven by adults, not children. In addition to that, nothing about legislation that we passed allowed kids to get off with no accountability. That was a false narrative that got Democrats all scared, and they passed some dumb fake reforms to try to act like they were, rolling back things. It was all about the narrative. But what I want to say is that you've seen these people that Fox and them dig up out the communities to come on TV and say stupid stuff like, "Oh, I called the police many times and they say they can't do nothing." But it's all like these half truths, right?
Right.
If you call the police and they say they can't do, I just want to ask anybody with any thinking person, right? Any thinking person that knows how the Baltimore police or any police department operates, right? When in the history of this world has an officer or officers said they can't do nothing? Even if they couldn't, they still historically beat you upside the head. What if they cared about whether or not their charge was going to result in a conviction? They still going to lock you up anyway and worry about what charges stick later. So we know our common sense ought to tell us that anytime you see police on TV talking about we can't do nothing, that's a lie. What I believe happened is because we passed major police reforms in 2021, they were mad. They were spiteful. And they were determined to make themselves the good guys again and make the poor little juveniles, they call them children, the demons, the animals, the bad guys. Make us the bad guys. They're desperately seeking to redeem their reputation as the good guys. So come on. When you ever seen police just sitting on their hands? Give me a break. It was never even true. But there's a lot of people who watch Fox 45 and other stuff who literally believe that we passed some laws that cause the police not to be able to do nothing for juveniles. It's just absolutely never been the truth.
I don't think that's ever true when it comes to Black neighborhoods. We never see the police not do anything. Only on Pennsylvania Avenue, Pennsylvania North Avenue. That's the only place I ever see them sit and they just chill. Everywhere else, I see them.
Meanwhile, I'm in a world where I'm still representing children that are automatically charged as adults. I still, at this very moment, as I sit here with you, the next couple of months are going to be the outcomes for 2 different children that I represent, a year apart, committed the same acts. One in the juvenile system, one in the adult system, one to be on juvenile probation for I don't know how long. It's possible to be up until 21, but it won't be. And the other facing 40 years in prison. Do you understand? Do you understand what difference this makes?
Yeah.
What kind of a human believes that a person that committed an act at 15 should be facing 40 years in prison, and this isn't an act that resulted in the death of anybody, right?
Really?
So I think that, I don't know, we're just very undereducated about the stuff. Again, one kid was 14. He's in the juvenile system at home now and given a chance to continue with his life. One in the adult system was 15, same stuff, incarcerated now and facing 40 years. That's the state's offer.
Wow. So if you have that, the difference, can't you, the precedent is him, the 14-year-old that's out at home. How do they do for the 15-year-old and one is at home and not
But
incarcerated?
they weren't together. These are two completely different situations.
I know, but isn't
I'm
one
just
the
saying they
precedent
committed
for the
similar
other?
acts.
Yeah, I know, but isn't one precedent like you can look at if this guy is getting this, why
No,
can't this?
no,
Are you
because a
saying
decision
that?
has been made by the courts and the prosecutors that this 15-year-old should be tried as an adult. That's not to be relitigated. That's decided already. And in the adult system, the offer of the state is 40 years.
Awful, awful,
I mean,
awful.
I could talk more details, but it's let me be clear. In
Wow.
neither case, neither child was acting alone. Neither child was the principal or the driver or the leader of any organization. Neither child physically, personally hurt anyone. And in no case was anyone killed or mortally wounded or permanently injured. These
So
are
why
all
40 years?
essentially crimes like armed robberies and carjackings.
But why 40 years? Okay, so you say all that. So why would the state come with 40 years? Why? It's
To send a
nonsensical.
message.
What message? You're hurting another human. What is
So
the message?
in the one case, the one that the older child, the 15-year-old, the state has determined, and they did not charge the juvenile in this way, the one in the juvenile system. They could have, but they did not charge this way. In
Okay.
addition to all of the individual crimes, they chose to charge them as being a part of a criminal enterprise. And, just to talk, plain language, y'all, they got a hard on for this whole idea that these children are doing a criminal enterprise, like RICO type of statute, like we knew of in the drug era. Now, what you and I know is, how in the world are you going to say that 14, 15, 16-year-olds got a daggone criminal organization? Yeah, they sat around and said, we're going to rob these people and we're going to get some money. That is not a criminal enterprise.
It's not an enterprise.
Really, it isn't. But that's what they're treating it as. And they want to send a message that these things aren't tolerated and you're going to do serious time if you're in it.
Wow. And that's unfortunate. I think that's one of the problems. The people who have the power to put people away, they litigate and they think through their mindsets and the things that how they feel about people.
It's
Instead of,
heartbreaking. I
it's
literally,
it is.
this is why I want to get out. Really, really bother me internally, deeply. And I am so frustrated if I see this likelihood that I won't be able to save this child. And and since I happen to know the two that I'm talking about, there's not an extreme difference between the two in terms of their backgrounds. Simply the biggest difference is the age difference at the time that acts occurred. But the one that's been incarcerated, that's charged an adult, in my opinion, is much further along mentally. I have more confidence in his ability to appreciate the consequences of his actions, and have remorse. And I guess what I'm saying is, if both were like free tomorrow on the street forever, I would have more confidence that the one that's looking at 40 years will be less likely to commit a crime again. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, he'd be
And
less
that's what's
likely to
the
reoffend.
heartbreaking part, because there's no true discernment in who they decide to throw away the key on and who not.
So it could be anyone at any time, and that's unfortunate. Wow.
Well, in Maryland, it could be any child 14 and over that commits a first-degree capital offense like murder or rape, or 16 and over that commits 16 and over for any of 33 enumerated statutory crimes, 14 and over for these first degree crimes. So first degree rape, robbery, murder. But
Mm-hmm.
another thing is that I'm sad that we don't discern between murder and not. For example, Adnan Syed has been in the news a lot, right? Adnan Syed, whether he did it or didn't do it, that's not what I'm going to put out here. But imagine a scenario where an Adnan Syed did murder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's now served 22, 23 years on a sentence, and he's free. He should be. I agree that Adnan should be free at this point, based on everything I know about the situation. However, how is it that a decision is made that 20 some years is enough for murder, but 40 years is adequate for a multitude of like crimes that are not murder? It's ridiculous. All right, I don't want to stay on this tangent. I can talk about this forever. Well,
we're gonna move on from that, but it's just really sad that that's happening. A lot of us don't know that those things are happening. I mean, the law can be so brutal, and so injustice. Wow. 40 years. Okay, we're moving on. So now you're retiring. You're leaving this. You're moving on. So what are you doing? What are you going to do? What do you want to do?
I'm on the Governor Westmore appointed me to the Board of Contract Appeals. That is equivalent to administrative law judge or appellate body for people that have bid protest or contract disputes with the state. So that full position, and I hope to do it for a while. As you heard me say earlier, I started off with contract work as a lawyer, and I've always been very interested in fairness and opportunities for small and minority contractors to get fair opportunities. I won't have always a lot of say in that, but what I can do is make sure that everything is fair. That someone isn't deprived because of an injustice or the state breaking the law or the other way around.
Yeah. So that's one thing I'm not really versed on, like the contract and the Board of Appeals. I don't know much about that, and so I don't
Nobody
think
does. Very few people know about anything to do with contracts. Nobody knows about procurement law. Trust me, and I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to learn. In doing this.
And so this appointment would be just when he's the governor. So say he does not get reelected, then that appointment you would now just work in the private sector. Is that how it works? Or you go on?
So they're 5-year terms.
Oh, 5
I'm
years.
only getting 3 because I came into an empty seat, a vacancy that had been vacant for 2 years. So I'm only getting 3 years before, if I choose to go up for reappointment, I'd have to go up for reappointment. And if he's there and I do a good job, I hope, if I want to get reappointed, I hope I get reappointed. If he's not there, then I guess I have to try to like lobby and convince somebody, the next governor, that I deserve it. But I believe the governor is going to be reelected. I think the governor has taken on the job, and nobody is perfect, but he's done he's trying every day. He's doing a good job, and I certainly can't see him being successfully primaried, and I don't believe he'd be defeated in the general election either. And the thing is, this is part of our problem politically. We really do look for all the wrong things politically. A lot of people never looked at the substance of our current governor at all, didn't care about it. They said he's good looking and he has a lot of charisma and we just love him.
And he's black.
And the black. But yeah, but y'all, Anthony Brown was black and I didn't see that. So I'm just saying, like, it wasn't just that. It was specifically this man and his charm and his charisma. Vangelis was black. Vangelis was black. Anthony Brown was black. They came before that. It wasn't the same thing. It was, some of it was unique to Wes and his charisma and his charm. And I think that's very important. But the point is, like, now that you see him on TV every day, and he's still charismatic and charming, but he's not new to you. Is your loyalty still going to be there? Are you going to ride with Westmore when the going gets tough, the way we expect him to ride with this very tough state? Many of us knew the job. I knew. Many of us knew the job was going to be more difficult than maybe even he knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and that bears to be seen. I think he has something that the other, like Anthony Brown, didn't have the charisma. I don't think.
Thing. So it wasn't just black; it was the black plus the charisma.
Yeah, we didn't feel him per se. I think West got under people's skins, and they really liked him, and so I think he's doing a pretty good job. I'm not the politics girl, but I think he can get reelected for sure. So this board appointment is appointed. It's not void, so no one can vote you in. That couldn't go on a ballot. That's not a ballot joint. That's not something. Okay.
No, not at this point.
Okay. So will you do any more running? That's the question. Are you going to?
The only other job I ever wanted, and I ran for it when Elijah Cummings died, I ran for Congress, the seat that Kwesi Mfume received. I still, to this day, as great as Kwesi Mfume is, and he's certainly charismatic. He's like the originator of the black charisma. He's a good speaker, and he's all that. But I'm much more of a fighter, and I'm not criticizing him in any way, but that's just who I am. And I felt like we needed a fighter. I felt like we needed somebody in the spirit of Perrin J. Mitchell, someone that was going to put black people first. Some people are going to make people first. Yeah. And, that's why I ran, because I feel very much like I've operated in the spirit of Perrin J. Mitchell my whole entire career. The only way I've been able to do it is people like Perrin did it before me, and they showed me that it was the right thing to do. And if you're blessed with this opportunity, you're worthless if you're not using it for the benefit of your people. Like, what purpose do you serve? None. So my point is, the only seat I'd ever be interested in would be that, but I wouldn't run against him. And so if he's there, I'm not running. So I probably won't get it, because I think he's going to be there for a minute. And again, I want to make it clear, I am not bashing or trashing him. I'm just like a different mentality in a different generation. And I thought it was time for a fighter. Like y'all saw, like you see Jasmine Crockett, or you see this
fighting, baby.
I've already fought all these battles on the state level. Nothing is going to deter me, right? And that's proven. And that's the type of fighter that we need in the Congress as well, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree. He's going to be there for a while, though. He came back, and he's going to sit in that seat for a while. But yes, I think we love Jasmine Crockett. We love the fighter in her, and we love fighters. We love people who talk truth to power.
I think the value of the seat. Why would I want the seat? Well, because as you see, you're so much more able to get a greater platform when you are in the Congress than in the state legislature. But that's not all the reason. That platform helps you leverage that position to and with your access to federal resources and what you can do for the state. It helps you have leverage over state policies and politics. So while I've always had uphill battles with trying to get the Democrats in line with the stuff that I think is right, as a legislator, a state legislator, I looked at it as an opportunity to leverage resources and power in a way to shape state policy from a different angle than what I've ever been able to do. So that's why that seat meant a lot to me and will always mean a lot to me.
That makes sense. Well,
but again, that's what people don't understand, because people were like, well, Kwesi got seniority, he gonna be in a leadership. Never was true. Ain't true now. And
that's
I want to be clear. I want to make it clear. When I talk about this, I actually deeply respect Kwesi Mfume. I understand who he is, and I think he does, a good job. And like everybody else, I love, listening to his perspective and all that. I'm just saying, when it comes to politics, we don't make decisions. I think that we ignore to the middle, right? We don't really want the radical revolutionary fighter. We love that person, but when have you seen us elect one in Maryland?
I don't think ever.
Well, I think me, but people didn't know. Look at me. Do I look like I'm all that threatening? No.
But when you were known to be the fighter, but I'm talking about on a congressional level. No, very docile.
But I'm saying, even when I got elected, I don't think anybody knew. They're like, oh, she's a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. I want to make laws. I don't think I didn't know. I didn't know what role I would play. So how would anybody else know? I didn't have any idea.
You didn't know you would go in there and fight. You didn't know you would fight like that? Come on. You tell me you didn't know you would fight like that? Come on.
I didn't know it was going to be necessary. I didn't know I didn't know there was going to be such great resistance.
Okay, so the fighter came out because of the resistance. In other words, they.
So in law, you gather your facts, you gather your evidence, and you make your argument. And if you have the facts and the evidence to back up your argument, then you generally win, right?
Mhm.
I thought it was going to be the same thing. It's not. You can
It's
be
not.
right all day long and all the evidence in the world, but they're like, no, thank you.
All right. So the second look at that is something that you champion. Am I correct? Okay. So what do you expect for it to happen now as you've kind of retired? How do you think that's going to go forward?
I think it's going to pass. The version that they decided to pass is going to pass.
Yeah.
I don't agree with the version they've chosen to pass, but
Oh,
maybe it's
really?
a good step. But I think I'm afraid because of the fact that the legislature tends to decide they've dealt with something and then you can't get anything else done. And I'll tell you that because for many years after 2021, we needed more tweaks to police reform legislation that we passed. I mean, not exotic, not radical tweaks,
Mhm.
like literally Anton's law doesn't work. The
Mm.
police disclosure of disciplinary records does not work. There's certain glitches in the system that everybody knows that don't work. And for 3 years, I had legislation to try to get it to work, and it
And it
didn't.
don't
They didn't
work.
pass it because they don't care that it doesn't work. It's like we did it. We would get credit for passing the law. Whether it works, we're not really concerned about that, right?
So you
So
don't
my
fix
point.
the laws. So it's just like anything. So if you pass something and it has loopholes, you don't you're not proactive
Well,
about
I think that
fixing.
the legislature's very hesitant to go back and do anything. They feel like they really pissed off police. I mean, frankly, for the first time ever, because up until 2021, they pretty much let the police pass their own laws. They let the police
Yeah.
make their own laws. They gave deference to law enforcement and states' attorneys in an unprecedented way that no other type of organization or even corporations have that power that they gave them. So in
Mm.
2021, for the first time ever, they stand up and say, we are going to we're going to drive the ship. We're going to act like legislators for a change, and we're going to make the laws that govern you, and you can't do anything about it right now. And they did that, and I think they have felt repercussions from it. And so that's why they've been hesitant. So my point is, second look, the version that I'm hearing is going to pass excludes people that have been sentenced to life without parole.
Whoa.
Well, hello, excuse me.
That's
If
what
you
it's
have
for.
life with the possibility of parole, you already have a potential avenue to get released. It is the people that are sentenced to life without the possibility of parole that desperately need second look more than anybody else. So, I mean, I'm not condemning, it's a step, and if that's all they can pass, I don't believe it is all they can pass. I believe it's all that somebody's made a decision that they can pass. It's not correct. Um, because what people don't know, again, it's about education. People think that if you got life without the possibility of parole, you must be the worst, most disgusting and
Yeah.
vile, heinous
Yeah.
person that committed the worst of all crimes, and you don't ever deserve parole. That's why they gave you life without parole. But what they don't know is there is no uniformity in sentencing throughout the state. So the very two people could be up, just like my two kids I talked about with the
Yes.
disparity in their situations. Two people commit the very same crime. You in Cecil County, and you get life without parole. You in Baltimore City, you got life with the possibility of parole. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm
But
saying
that
that's
can
how
happen.
that's how it's this disparities work. But one of the biggest things is something like felony murder, where people are in there, and some people might be the principals that actually committed a murder. Some people are people that were there for the felony, but they didn't touch a gun, they didn't commit a murder. They got
Mhm.
felony murder, they got life without parole. This bill won't help them. And those are people that need to be helped because felony murder is a ridiculous and wrong and antiquated statutory crime. Um, Also, like I said about my kids with the 40 years, facing 40 years, he never hurt anybody, he never killed anybody, nobody died. People don't understand that there are people in there with life without the possibility of parole that did not commit a murder, right?
Really?
Or yeah. So don't think that because you got life without the possibility of parole, you killed somebody. It's not the
That's
case
what
all the
I
time.
thought.
It could have been attempt. You could get that for attempted murder or conspiracy to commit murder. Or again, you could get it for felony murder, or you could get it for a string of robberies that you participated in, and somebody thought it was 6 of these things. You're unredeemable. You don't deserve to ever walk the streets again.
we live in a country that really loves that values property over people. I tell you, because I just don't understand these type of laws. It's unbelievable. So I thought the second look is just that the look at the folks who need the look. I mean,
Well, it's not nothing. It gives people similar. So you want to hear something crazy? So a few years ago, we passed Juvenile Restoration Act, which allowed
yeah,
people that were sentenced to convicted when they were prior to 18 years old a chance to
yeah,
get a review of their sentence, and this is kind of modeled after that. And what they did with second look is they limited this to people that were 18 to 25 when the incident occurred. And so that if you were 26, you screwed. Sorry.
really.
But so they limited to 18 to 25, I believe, and that's okay. I mean, that's not really that bad because I'm happy to get those emerging adults
Yeah,
in an opportunity. But what I do think is terrible is the excluding people that were sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, because now once again you're giving deference to that sentencing judge that the sentencing judge shouldn't have, because this isn't supposed to be about what the sentencing judge thought. This is about to be about look at who the person is today. Look at how they've changed their life or transformed today from what
yeah,
they were then.
yes, 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 yes. Wow, this I couldn't do it. I mean, I just this is something that's almost scary to me. It's like you can look at someone and you look at the situation and you can take their whole life. I don't know how people. It sounds very malicious. So we
Well, it's
had
also true though that there are a lot of people that were victims or families of victims that once people are in the course of trying to make amends when they're locked
mhm,
up, they're incarcerated, or
yes,
even once they get out, they reach out to these folks if they want to. They will ask to make amends. They have programs of mediation, and so I think another important point is not all victims and not all victims' families are of a mentality where they want this person to continue to be locked up. A lot of these people were locked up during an era of, extremely heavy drug trade on the streets and,
yeah,
and mass incarceration for drugs. And so a lot of the families of victims are in very similarly situated as the families of the culprits. And at
wow,
this point, there's just been so much tremendous loss in these communities and in these families.
yeah,
Many of them see it in a whole different light. And
yeah,
and you can't imagine, the number of people I've talked to that have been incarcerated for a long time. And this shocked me when I first heard it, but I've heard it a lot now. And I'm feeling like terrible, like they were locked up very young. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like what happened to you is just terrible. And they have said, no, I'm happy that I was locked up, because if I wasn't locked up, I'd be dead. If I was still out there doing the same stuff in the street, I'd be dead. So I'm actually happy that I was locked up. So
wow,
again, have changed a lot since the 80s and 90s and
yeah.
early 2000s in our communities.
And but is that something that they're looking at though? That things have changed and giving people more of a chance to come. I mean, well, I guess not because the Second Look Act would have passed. So I guess that
It's going to pass. I hear it's going to pass. I hear it's being voted in the
you know,
Senate
Brother
on
Malcolm was here
tomorrow.
and he said that they're very that it's Malcolm Ruff and he loves you.
And I feel some kind of way because if y'all going to pass this watered down shit, you could have passed it last year when I was there, right? So
He said it's going to pass, you know, but I didn't. He said that he feels very it's very favorable that it will pass. But if it's watered down, then I think that that's a problem. You know, I don't know.
it will be watered down. And I think that one of the things that nobody likes to talk about, when you talk about the mentality of the leadership of the General Assembly and who drives the ship, um, you don't have a lot of people in the General Assembly, House or Senate, with a criminal defense background. And even though you might have a large contingent of Black people, a lot of the Black people that are in General Assembly come from means. There's not a whole lot of people that come from Sandtown. There's not a whole lot of people that come from Edmondson Village. There's not a whole lot of people that come from areas where they grew up
Hmm.
around the issues that we're now seeking to address. And so they don't know the people. They
Yeah,
don't know the mentality. They don't know the families. I'm not saying everybody, but very few.
yeah, and
Um, and
they
I
don't have
didn't.
that reality.
I grew up in Ashburton. A lot of people believe or think because of what I advocate for that I grew up, you know, in a certain way, that I grew up in a different environment than I did. I didn't grow up wealthy, but I would say I grew up in some privilege. I grew up in Ashburton. We didn't have much money because my dad abruptly died when I was a kid. My
Mm-hmm.
mother was a housewife and mother. She decided to become a public school teacher. You know, public school teachers didn't make any money in the 70s and 80s. And that's when she was a teacher. And the issue though for me is I I grew up, and when I was born and raised in Baltimore City, there was a collective and unified love that Black people had for each other.
Yeah.
And I was always clear that,
Yeah.
you know, if I hadn't been born where I was and to the people I was born there, but for the grace of God, go I in any situation, because I'm a Gemini and we like to explore and experiment, and no telling what I would have done. I would have done anything if I had not had the strict mother that I had, and a lot of other people in the village to keep me kind of straight.
Yeah.
So I've always been clear about that, but then also becoming a public defender and a criminal defense lawyer very early um, shaped my thinking as well.
Mm-hmm.
Going into the circuit court for Baltimore City in the early 90s and seeing 30 to 40 Black men chained to each other for a violation of probation day. And I'm not exaggerating. Anybody will tell you this is how it was.
You said a
So,
violation of probation. Chain.
yeah, so collateral days, like people that violate probation, they bring a lot of people in on one day to sentence them for their violations or probations, and they'd be all standing there together, chained to each other. I clerked for a judge called Judge Kenneth Levon Johnson. We don't have enough time to go into him, but he was a great man, and he shaped my thinking a lot about the criminal justice system. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so my point is, I came to this with a different perspective than what a
Yeah.
lot of my colleagues have.
But they're the ones who are making the policy. That's even more scary, I think. And I would say people who have means or millionaires, they cannot legislate for poor people. They don't have the reality. They don't understand the impact of poverty, the traumas that it creates. I think that's the biggest problem is the money that is in Congress, the money that is in the Senate, the money, I think it's a problem. And they're the ones making policy as we see it now. And the last thing we're going to talk about, and we have to talk about, is what do you think of the state of this country right now with, Muskie and Trumpy and what's going on? What do you think? I mean, as a legislator, as a lawyer who knows the law, what is going down? Give us some real talk, because I don't think Black people like what is going on, and I don't think we're really as scared as the others. So, what do you think? I
It's
want to hear that.
interesting, and I don't think I'm the one to ask because I'm so atypical. I'm so not typical. First of all, even before this current iteration of what is happening nationally happened, I decided years ago I have enough on my plate fighting what I can possibly affect and influence here in Maryland. So I really have always been aware of what's going on nationally, but that's not my fight because that's not where I can change anything. But I can help these lead poison babies here,
Yeah.
possibly. I don't think I helped enough, but I tried.
Mm-hmm.
I can help our education system. I can help us have better lives here. I can't do nothing about that. But what I also think is important that led to this is the complete, you know, sort of extreme mass ignorance of people, a combination of people being very checked out because they don't believe in the system, and another combination of just people being people that don't laugh at me. But I've talked to my friends about this a lot. I'm like, the difference between us and them, like they're not like us, is we grew up on Phil Donahue, where we learned something every day after school. And these people grew up on Jerry Springer, where they got dumbed down every day after school. So the difference is
Oh
that
God.
the lack
Oh
of
God.
substance in our
Mm.
thought processes and what's important. Like we Phil Donahue had like Sister Soldier on, Muhammad Ali, Louis Farrakhan. I mean, every day I was enthralled in these major issues. But Jerry Springer got people beating each other up and taking their clothes off and pulling off their wigs. I mean, come on. It makes a difference when
It
that's what
doesn't.
is ingrained in you every day, and then you add that to shit like the Housewives and the other reality stuff, and I'm not just denigrating it, but
And
there's no
social
counter.
media.
It's not like the
Social
school is countering it. The education system is not countering it. There's
You're
no
right.
counterbalance to all of that dumbing down. And so I do think that it's contributed to, it's not, I'll just say this, it has not helped us. It has not helped our cause.
It hasn't helped our cause. But then when we look at this administration, I don't think we voted en masse for.
Oh no, we
Donald.
didn't. We part of the 92%. I'm a proud member of the 92%.
Yeah, so we didn't vote for this guy. He's here, and I don't understand the others. Like, you didn't see this, but
I was actually talking about the others. I was talking
oh,
about
you
the
were
white
talking about
people
the others.
who grew up on
Okay,
Jerry Springer and voted for this fool.
okay, got it. Voted for this buffoon. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's not sustainable. I see that they're going to have some issues. We see they're already having issues.
All we can do, and again, I'm probably not the one. I'm not Jasmine Crockett. I'm not in Congress. I'm not Kwesi Freeman. I'm not in Congress fighting on a daily basis to try to counter what this administration does. Frankly, the courts have done a halfway decent job of putting this man in his place, though. I will give them that.
He doesn't listen. He doesn't listen. They tell him not to. He does what he want to do. So
100%. So thank God the courts have shot him down quite a bit. But we got a lawless person that doesn't believe in any laws, and who's a tyrant running our country, and him and his peeps. We can't do anything about that in the short term. So I'm gonna say what I've been seeing on social media. I've been seeing what I've been seeing my sisters say since this happened. I'm gonna mind my black business. No.
we mind our black business.
That. No, I think it's a time to focus on self and community and building up and being the best you can be. Because all you can do is be the best you can be. All you can do is try to help your own community and your own village. And that's what I'm focused on. So just to kind of tie up, what am I going to be doing? I feel like I'm going to be more accessible to community because I was always too busy, always too stressed, and people really don't have any idea how stressful and depleting it is to fight. So once I was done with all kind of the fights, I didn't have a lot of energy left. And then I had to make a living because I'm a single black woman and the legislature don't pay no money, and y'all don't understand that. It's not a well-paying job. So you're working 24/7 for a job that now is up to 50,000. When I started, it was 38, then went up to 46. It's 38, 42, 46, and now it's at 54.
Wait a minute. It's not six figures? I thought it was.
No.
What? You guys do that?
That's why it's part-time. That's why it's part-time. So when I've been out of Annapolis, I had to hustle to pay my bills, to make a living. And again, I'm single. I didn't have a 2-income home. So, when I'm a Gemini, so I wanted to live halfway decent. I wanted to eat. I like nice food. So I had to work. So
I get it.
It was a very draining lifestyle and a very depleting lifestyle. And I had two things that were both not easy: politics and criminal defense.
You pick hard, don't you? You go hard. Listen, we got a question right quick. It said, greetings, ladies, at Joe Carter. During your time in the legislature, who are the top 5 women legislators, past or present, that inspired you? Great question.
So I'm going to thank you for the question.
Well, thank you. Great question,
my girl, 1919. Lena K. Lee, the first black woman lawyer. She was District 40 in Baltimore City, and she was a powerhouse. Of course, Verda Welcome. People know of her, and people talk about her more than Lena, because Lena was a delegate. Verda Welcome was the first black senator, not just in Maryland, in the country, for a state legislative body. So I'm going to start with those two. And then I'm going to go to Mrs. Murphy, who was the first black woman that represented District 41 in the legislature. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Victorine Adams, who you guys have heard about. First black woman on city council, but also just a powerhouse. She was married to Willie Adams. I'm sure that had a little bit to do with why she was the first black woman elected in a powerhouse in politics. But nevertheless, they were a team, they were partners, and when I was newly elected, I didn't personally know Victorine Adams. I knew she knew my father and everything, and probably knew who I was, and I knew who she was, but I didn't know her. But she sent me the most inspiring cards and letters. I'm so proud of you. You can do this. You can handle anything. I'm always here to support you. And she sent checks with those letters. Just because she knew how it was done, right? So that, how many names? That's 4.
One more.
All right. Now this is gonna be a little. Now it's gonna be challenging. I gotta do my peers, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, this is gonna be something out of left field. Y'all not gonna even be. You're not gonna know, and you're not gonna understand. But I'll explain. I'm gonna say Tiffany Alston. Ooh. Tiffany Alston is a delegate in Prince George's County, and years ago we served together. And Tiffany Alston is one of the smartest people that I've ever met, and definitely one of the smartest people in Annapolis. And Tiffany was a very stubborn and very free-spirited person like me, and very smart. So she didn't go along to get along. And because of her opposition to the establishment, she was ousted from office. She was removed from the House of Delegates. She was disbarred, and she was humiliated and her reputation destroyed. And within 10 years, she rebuilt her reputation. She was reelected to the House of Delegates. She has been reinstated as a lawyer, and she is flourishing right now in the Maryland House of Delegates. And she's my inspirational story because of how her resilience and how she didn't let what happened to her. And it was the political establishment, the Democrat establishment, had no place for this woman. I don't claim that there weren't things she couldn't have handled better. Yeah. Again, she was young. She was younger than me. We all grow up, you know. I'm different. When I first got to Annapolis, I was much more vocal and radical about how y'all not doing this and blah blah. I learned, you know, to use my voice when it was going to matter most. So we all learn. So I'm sure. So today, just the woman she is today, the lawyer she is today, y'all. She's a great lawyer. She says she don't want to do family law no more because it's getting on her nerves. But if you got family law issues, she's one of the best family lawyers in the state.
Really? Tiffany Alston.
Tiffany Alston Gray.
Look her up. Wow. So
you have her on one day. She's really
maybe one. Wow, that sounds amazing. Like she went through all that, and now she's back in the delegation. Wow, amazing. So this AM FM 1819. She got some questions. She said, "What advice were you given going into? I've helped you going into the." I don't know. What advice would you give to?
I've helped you going into the legislature. What advice would you give to aspiring women legislators? Thank you for helping me. I appreciate it. I don't know who you are because I can't see.
Yeah, she said, I help you going into the legislature. What advice would you give to aspiring women legislators? Selling someone who wants to run. And she voted for you.
My advice would be never compromise your principles, because at the end of the day, you have your own legacy and what you did when you were there. Whether people liked you or didn't like you is really not going to be on your tombstone. So you need to do what you know is right and always follow, you know, your higher voice and whatever is guiding your steps, and fight for your people. Don't listen. Everybody else fights for their people. We're the only people that get ridiculed and criticized and demeaned when we fight for our people. Fight for your people and relentlessly do it.
Relentlessly. I love that. I think she followed up with this. During your legislative tenure, what advice was given to you from other women legislators, and what advice would you give to aspiring women legislators? I think you did that.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell the truth. Earlier on, many times, the advice given to me from older, more seasoned legislators was shut up. Don't make this issue. Don't fight. Don't take on this fight. And they told me their stories about how terrible it was for them when they first got there, and how I should be just lucky that I even got assigned to a committee. I don't agree with them. I agree. I'm like, but you did all that, and that was your situation, but I didn't get here so I could shut up. If I got here to shut up, then what is the purpose of me being here, right? Later on in the Senate, I would say that, you know, I enjoyed a lot more encouragement and a lot more support. But earlier on in the House of Delegates, it was not good.
So in other words, they weren't ready for you. They weren't ready for what you were bringing to the table. And so, you know, sometimes we give advice from our own experience, but we should not tell a person that they shouldn't be great. I don't think nobody shuts up. You don't do all that to shut up. I mean, that
I don't
doesn't.
think the a lot of the legislators, especially the elder black legislators, not the ones maybe the first crop that were right there in the heart of the civil rights movement, but maybe
Okay.
those that were the recipients of that work that came in later. I
Yeah.
don't think they saw this as the place to be great. They saw this as the place to assimilate, the place to get the little crumbs you might be able to get for your district because you did what the leadership told you to do. I'm not criticizing everybody, but that's how most of them thought when I got there.
Okay. That makes sense. That explains it. Well, Senator Jill Carter, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. I appreciate you just talking and being so open and transparent. And I'm answering some questions. We had some folks in, but hey, I want to know who AM FM 1819 is, but we're gonna roll with that. But I want you to leave Jill's Jewel. Leave something inspiring for the people, and then we're gonna get up out of here.
Something inspiring for the people.
Yeah.
Um, well, I guess that the most inspiring thing is that there were many times on my journey when I was depressed. I didn't show it because I grew up in that era where you don't let them see you sweat or let them see you
Yeah.
cry. So
Yeah.
I suppressed and repressed a lot of my sadness for years. But you might have seen it if you ran into me in the street and I didn't seem happy. I didn't smile. Um, I think that it was all worth it because I believe that I've lived and continue to live my purpose. And you're
Mhm.
not here to live somebody else's purpose. You're here to live your own purpose. You're here to live what God put us here, all different, to uniquely live the life and path that we're supposed to live. You can't compromise that to get along with other people. So that's what I think. I think you're supposed to be different. You're supposed to be uniquely you. And never ever don't do that, because when you do that, it's kind of you're blocking yourself from your true purpose and your true mission.
I like that, Jill. Live and continue to live your purpose. Do not compromise. Like that. I like that. I like that. So listen, I really appreciate you. Now that you're on these streets and you outside, now that you outside, you gotta come by and give us a little love once in a while. This is your third time on with me though, so I really appreciate you. You've always, I mean, the first time I met you, I want to tell the folks, I called and it was during the pandemic. I think that was like my second month doing this. And I called you cold call. You was like, I don't got nothing to do. just send me the stuff. And I couldn't believe that you would come on, but you did. And you came on again with the panel ladies, and here you are again. So
What we did in the pandemic is all I did my whole day from wake up to dead to wake up to going to sleep was zooms. So like
zoom,
a lot
zoom,
of y'all,
zoom.
I gained a lot of weight.
We all did. We all did. AM, she wants to say, I've always admired Senator Carter, tenacity, strength, and championship. So that's a little
Thank
love for
you.
you as we leave here. So we're out of here, guys. Thank you for spending this time with us. Senator, we want to say thank you to your service. We appreciate you. You've done so much for Baltimore City and in Maryland. So we really appreciate your service and what you saying you were not happy, that kind of disturbed me. But we hope you from here on get very happy, have a great life, get outside and do some things for Jill. How about that?
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me. And peace, family, and power to the people. Always power to the people.
Always power to the people. Guys, we out of here. Don't go nowhere, Jill. I gotta talk to you afterwards. So we're gonna say
Okay.
deuces. We out of here. Good night, guys. Y'all have a great night. We are gone. Good night.
Good night.